So continuing with our notes on lab safety and common laboratory equipment, we're going to look at the different lab tools that you might be using in our labs and experiments. So one of the most common lab tools that we will be using is our digital scale. So our digital scale looks kind of similar to the one picture here, this yellow kind of scale, not nearly as fancy. But we will use it in order to make precise measurements. So we'll typically measure in grams. So you just turn it on, you place your specimen, and you get a number, you get its weight. We do need to make sure we are careful with our digital scale, though, that we have zeroed the scale out before we add the sample that we are measuring. This helps to ensure that we are getting an accurate reading and we don't have maybe something left over, like maybe we were measuring sugar before, but now we're measuring starch. So we just always want to make sure we zero out the digital scale. Another commonly used lab tool is the hot plate. This is what we use in order to heat up chemicals. And then we have graduated cylinders. Those are typically going to be glass or plastic, but they are going to help us to measure volume to a very accurate measurement. And again, those are typically going to be measured in milliliters. We then also have beakers. We will use beakers to store, stir, heat, and measure liquid volume. Beaker tongs can be used to help handle hot beakers, and they can also be used to handle Erlenmeyer flask. Erlenmeyer flask, there it is. So if the beaker is too hot, we can use the tongs to move it. That way we don't accidentally burn our hands. Other common lab tools are test tubes, a test tube rack, a test tube holder, and a test tube brush. So test tubes are used to store, heat, or mix different liquids or substances. Test tubes are held in a test tube rack, so we can have multiple test tubes at our lab station. And then test tube holders are just smaller kind of clamps that we can use to move a hot test tube. So maybe we had a hot water bath going where we had our beaker sitting on a hot plate and we had a test tube in the beaker, and now we need to pull that test tube out of that hot water bath. We certainly wouldn't want to put our hands into boiling water. We'll use a test tube holder. And then of course a test tube brush is used to clean the test tubes. This is very important. We don't want to contaminate any of our labs by having dirty test tubes. We will also have meter sticks, which help us to measure length. We will use pipettes or eyedroppers to help us measure and transfer very small amounts of liquids. And then mostly for the biology class, but physical science, you guys may see some Petri dishes, which we may use to hold specimens because maybe we're doing some type of observation, or maybe we're using the Petri dish to help us get an accurate measurement on our digital scale. So the substance, we put it in a Petri dish to just kind of keep it in place. And then we have microscopes, which are used to observe very small microscopic organisms. And when using a microscope, we will use a cover slip and a glass slide. The glass slide is what holds the specimen, and so we put the slide on the microscope, and then the cover slip just goes onto the glass slide to cover the specimen to keep it from getting like weird stuff, like to contaminate the specimen. But that's your microscope. And that is it for our commonly used lab tools. So if you have any questions or concerns, just let me know.